Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. One of the biggest traps people fall into when it comes to relationships is this: you keep dating somebody's potential. You keep falling in love with the picture in your head of what they could be instead of looking at what they're showing you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, let me break this down to you plain and simple. One of the biggest problems in relationships today is that people keep confusing potential with reality. You meet somebody, you like the way they look, you like the way they talk, you like the way they talk, maybe you like the way they make you laugh, and in your mind, you start building this whole picture of who they could be. You start saying to yourself, oh, if he just gets a little more serious, he could be husband material. Or if she just learns to be a little more supportive, she could be the one. And right there, you've left reality and started living in potential. You've stopped dating the person in front of you, and now you're dating a fantasy you created in your own head. Here's the truth: potential is a tricky word. Potential means something is possible. It doesn't mean it's promised. You can buy a bag of seeds, but that doesn't mean you've got a garden. You can buy a gym membership, but that doesn't mean you've got a six-pack. You can have a million ideas, but that doesn't make you a millionaire. And when you fall for someone's potential, you're basically saying, I'm going to ignore what's right in front of me and bet my time, my heart, and my future on something that might never happen. That's why so many people end up heartbroken, because they invested in the dream instead of dealing with the truth. Now, I know why people do this. We do it because we want to believe the best in people. We want to believe that love is powerful enough to transform somebody. We want to think that if we're patient enough, supportive enough, forgiving enough, then one day that person is going to blossom into exactly what we imagine. But here's the problem: people don't grow just because you wish it. They don't change just because you wait. They don't transform just because you love them harder. Change comes when they decide to change, not when you decide to hope. You ever met somebody who has all the talent in the world, but no drive? You see them, and you're like, man, if they would just apply themselves, if they would just focus, they could be amazing. That's potential. But you know what the reality is? They're not applying themselves. They're not focusing. They're not doing the work. And until they decide to get up and put in the effort, their potential doesn't mean a thing. Same thing goes in relationships. You can sit there and say, well, he could be a great provider if he just got motivated, or she could be loyal if she just learned to be honest. But what is she today? What is he today? Because that's what you've got to deal with. Let me tell you something: time does not turn potential into reality. Effort does. Discipline does. Desire does. And if the person you're with isn't putting in the effort, then you're just holding on to a picture that's never going to develop. Too many people waste their best years waiting on somebody to grow into the role they should already be prepared for. You keep thinking, well, maybe next year they'll be different, and 5 years later, you're still standing in the same spot, still waiting, still hoping, still making excuses. You don't get those years back, and every day you spend waiting on somebody's potential, you're missing out on the reality of someone else who could love you the way you deserve right now. See, reality tells you the truth. Reality is what you can see, what you can touch, what you can count on today. Reality is that if a man isn't consistent right now, he's not going to suddenly wake up and turn consistent because you kept praying about it. Reality is that if a woman doesn't respect you right now, she's not going to magically learn respect just because you gave her 5 more chances. Reality is what they show you, not what you imagine about them. Potential, on the other hand, is like dating a maybe. And let me tell you, maybe is a dangerous place to build your life. Maybe he'll commit. Maybe she'll stop cheating. Maybe they'll finally settle down. Maybe they'll grow up. Maybe is not solid ground. Maybe will have you doubting yourself, lowering your standards, and justifying behavior you should have walked away from a long time ago. Potential will have you saying, well, at least they're trying, when in reality, trying doesn't pay bills, trying doesn't heal wounds, and trying doesn't give you peace of mind. Let me give you an example. Imagine you go to a job interview and the boss tells you, now look, we don't have a paycheck for you today, but we've got the potential to pay you one day in the future if things work out. You wouldn't take that job. You wouldn't work 40 hours a week with no paycheck. No benefits, no guarantee, just potential. But that's exactly what people do in relationships every single day. You're clocking in emotionally, clocking in physically, clocking in mentally, and you get no return. Just a whole lot of potential. Reality is what you've got to judge. Reality is, are they showing up? Are they dependable? Do they respect you? Do they communicate? Do they bring peace into your life? Are they building with you, not just dreaming with you? Potential will have you dating a sweet talker, but reality will show you if those sweet words come with real action. Potential will have you thinking. They'll change once we get married. Reality says, if they're not doing it now, they're not going to do it later. And let me tell you something else. When you confuse potential with reality, you start lowering your standards. You start saying, well, at least he's got ambition, but ambition without action is just daydreaming. You start saying, at least she's independent, but independence without respect is just selfishness. You start excusing everything because you're so busy staring at the potential version of that person that you can't even see the truth staring you in the face. That's how people get stuck in toxic relationships for years. That's how people end up drained, depressed, and doubting themselves. Because you keep telling yourself that if you just hold on a little longer, they're going to finally become what you need. And while you're waiting, you're the one bending. You're the one sacrificing. You're the one carrying all the weight. That's not love. That's not love. That's self-neglect. You deserve somebody who's already showing up, not somebody you've got to drag across the finish line. You deserve somebody who's already loving you right, not somebody you've got to train like a puppy. You deserve somebody who's already consistent, not somebody you've got to beg to be faithful. But you'll never see that if you keep dating potential, because potential blinds you. It makes you ignore the warning signs. It makes you dismiss the red flags. It makes you believe in what could be instead of dealing with what is. And here's the hardest part. Sometimes potential looks real good. Potential is charming. Potential is smooth. Potential can talk a good game. They can paint you a whole future with their words. They'll tell you how much they want to get their life together, how much they're going to change, how much they plan to love you better, how much they plan to succeed. And it sounds so convincing that you start thinking it's already happening. But talk is not transformation. Words are not work. Promises are not proof. You can't live on potential because potential doesn't put food on the table. Potential doesn't heal your heart. Potential doesn't raise your children. Reality does. That's why you've got to learn to separate the two. Look at what's real. Look at what they're doing today. Look at how they treat you now. Look at whether their actions match their words. That's reality. And if the reality doesn't line up with the picture you painted in your mind, you've got to stop confusing the two. Because every day you choose potential over reality, you're choosing fantasy over truth. And truth is the only thing that will keep you sane in a relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make this real simple for you. People show you who they are every single day, not every other week, not once in a blue moon, not when they feel like it, every single day. The problem is most of us just don't want to pay attention to the evidence. We see it, we hear it, we feel it, but instead of accepting it, we brush it off. We make excuses. We cover it up. We tell ourselves, well, maybe they didn't mean it like that. But listen to me, people tell on themselves through their actions all the time. You just got to stop ignoring the story they're showing you. See, a person's behavior is their resume. You don't need to guess. You don't need to predict. You don't need to beg for answers. The way they treat you, the way they show up, the way they handle life, that's their application for the role they want to play in your life. And if somebody is showing you laziness, showing you disrespect, showing you inconsistency, showing you selfishness, that's not an accident. That's not confusion. That's who they are right now. That's the reality you've got to deal with. You know what people do when they first meet somebody. They listen to the words more than the actions. A man tells you he's ambitious, and you believe him, even though you've never seen him work a steady job. A woman tells you she's loyal, and you believe her, even though she's flirting with 3 different people in your presence. We love to buy into people's words because words are easy. They sound good. They fill in the blanks. But words are just paint. Actions are the real picture. And if the painting doesn't match the words, then you already know the truth. Every day, people are teaching you how much they respect you, how much they value you, how serious they are, how honest they are. The question is, are you learning the lesson or are you erasing it? Somebody doesn't call you back for 3 days. That's a lesson. Somebody keeps canceling plans. That's a lesson. Somebody lies and then tries to laugh it off like it's no big deal. That's a lesson. But what do most folks do? They turn that lesson into a story in their head. They say, well, maybe he was busy, or maybe she forgot, or maybe they didn't mean it that way. You keep rewriting the story until it feels better, instead of just reading what's right in front of you. Here's the thing about people: consistency is the truth teller. Anybody can pretend for a little while. Anybody can fake it for a few weeks or months. But over time, their true self always leaks out. You can't hide character every day. You can't disguise your habits every day. You can't mask your values every day. So if you pay attention long enough, people will always reveal exactly who they are. The challenge is, most of us don't want to wait long enough to see the truth, or we see the truth and pretend it's not there. Now, let me keep it real. Sometimes the truth ain't pretty. Sometimes the truth hurts. But the truth is also the only thing that sets you free. You can't build a real relationship on a lie, and you can't hold on to potential when reality is screaming in your face. If somebody shows you that they're selfish, don't you dare sit there and say, well, maybe they'll learn to share. If somebody shows you they're irresponsible with money, don't you fool yourself into thinking, well, when we get married, they'll learn how to budget. No, ma'am. No, sir. They've already given you the preview of the movie. You don't need to buy a ticket for the whole show. People show you who they are in the small stuff. It's not always about the big dramatic things. You see it in how they talk to a waiter. You see it in how they treat their own family. You see it in how they act when nobody's watching. Those little moments tell you everything you need to know. A person who's rude to a stranger is going to be rude to you when the newness wears off. A person who lies about small things will lie about big things when it counts. A person who avoids responsibility at work is going to avoid responsibility at home. Stop telling yourself the little things don't matter. The little things are the foundation, and the foundation tells you whether the house is going to stand or fall. And let me tell you something else: people are not as complicated as we make them out to be. We sit around with our friends asking, why would he do that? Or why would she say that? Or do you think they really meant it? Stop overthinking. People are not puzzles, they're patterns. If you watch long enough, the pattern will show you everything you need to know. And the truth about patterns is this: they don't lie. You can't argue with repetition. If somebody disrespects you once, okay, maybe it was a mistake. If they do it twice, that's a warning. If they keep doing it, that's who they are. And if who they are, and if you keep staying, then that's on you. We've got to stop being shocked when people show us who they are. We've got to stop acting surprised like we didn't see it coming. 9 times out of 10, the signs were already there. The problem is we didn't want to believe them. We wanted the story in our head to be bigger than the story they were writing in reality. But ignoring signs doesn't make them go away. It just makes the fall harder when the truth finally comes crashing in. Somebody shows up late all the time. That's not an accident, that's a priority. Somebody flirts with other people in front of you. That's not playfulness, that's disrespect. Somebody never wants to define the relationship. That's not confusion, that's clarity. They're showing you every single day what they want, who they are, and where they're at. You've just got to open your eyes and stop wishing for a different picture. Now, here's the hard truth: believing people when they show you who they are takes courage. It takes courage to walk away from somebody you hoped would be different. It takes courage to stop making excuses for behavior you know is wrong. It takes courage to accept that the person you want is not the person they're choosing to be. But that's the only way you save yourself from wasting time. That's the only way you protect your peace. That's the only way you set a real standard for your life. People are consistent, even in their inconsistency. If somebody is always unreliable, that's a kind of consistency. If somebody is always half in and half out, that's a kind of consistency. And if that's what they're showing you, you've got to take it for what it is. Don't make them into something they're not. Don't fall in love with their words while their actions are screaming the opposite. Don't cling to who they could be when who they are is standing right in front of you every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. When it comes to relationships, stop falling for promises and start looking for proof. Promises sound real good. Promises will sweep you off your feet, have you smiling, have you believing that tomorrow is about to be the best day of your life. But promises without proof are just pretty lies wrapped up in nice words. Anybody can make a promise. Anybody can look you in the eye and tell you what you want to hear. But only proof can tell you what's real. See, promises are cheap. Promises don't cost nothing. A man can stand right in front of you and say, baby, I promise I'm going to do better. After he's messed up for the 10th time, and you'll start to believe it because you want to. A woman can say, I promise I'm going to change, right after she's done the very thing she swore she wouldn't do. And you'll hold on to that promise because your heart wants to hope. But if the action never changes, if the pattern never shifts, then that promise is just air. And you can't build a life on air. Proof is different. Proof is solid. Proof is behavior you can measure, behavior you can trust. Proof is somebody showing up the way they said they would, not just saying it once and disappearing. Proof is consistent action that matches the words that came out of their mouth. If they say they love you, the proof is in how they treat you. If they say they want to be faithful, the proof is in whether they stay faithful. If they say they're serious about you, the proof is in how they prioritize you. Love is not about what people promise. Love is about what they actually deliver. The problem is, too many of us fall in love with what people say instead of what they do. We hold on to the promise like it's a contract, even though we've got no evidence that the person intends to fulfill it. That's why people end up stuck in situationships for years. Somebody keeps promising, one day I'm going to commit. One day I'm going to marry you. One day we're going to build a future together. And you hold on to that one day like it's a guarantee. Meanwhile, years are passing by, and the only thing you've got to show for it is a bunch of broken promises and wasted time. Proof would have told you the truth months in. Love proof, not promises, because promises don't protect you. Promises don't provide for you. Promises don't build stability. Proof does. If somebody tells you, I'll always be there for you, the proof is whether they actually pick up the phone when you need them. If somebody promises, I'll respect you, the proof is whether they respect you in the small things when nobody's watching. If somebody promises, I'll never hurt you again, the proof is whether their behavior changes, whether they take responsibility, whether they stop repeating the same mistakes. And let me keep it real, proof doesn't need a speech. Proof doesn't need to convince you. Proof is visible. Proof is steady. Proof is when you don't even have to ask because the action already answers your question. When somebody truly loves you, they don't have to keep saying, I promise I'll do better. You'll see better. You'll feel better. You'll know better because their actions will make it undeniable. We live in a world where talk is cheap. People will sell you dreams just to keep you around. They'll dangle promises in front of you like carrots, so you'll keep running behind them. They'll keep you hooked with words because words are easy to give. But let me ask you something. When your bills are due, do you want a promise or do you want proof? When you're feeling broken inside, do you want a promise or do you want proof? When you need stability in your life, do you want a promise or do you want proof? Every time you're going to want proof because proof is what holds you up when everything else is falling down. Some of y'all are holding on to empty promises because you're afraid to face the truth. You're afraid that if you demand proof, the person won't measure up and then you'll have to let them go. So instead, you hold on to the words because the words feel safer than the reality. But let me tell you something, reality may hurt for a minute, but empty promises will hurt you for years. You'd rather cry once over the truth than cry for a lifetime over a lie. And here's the thing, proof isn't grand gestures all the time. Proof doesn't mean buying you gifts every holiday or making dramatic speeches about love. Proof is in the everyday stuff. Proof is in consistency. Proof is in showing up on time. Proof is in keeping your word about the little things. Proof is in remembering what matters to you and respecting it. Proof is in not having to beg for loyalty, not having to beg for communication, not having to beg for respect. When somebody loves you, the proof is built into how they live, not just how they talk. The reason this matters so much is because promises make you hopeful, but proof makes you secure. Promises play with your emotions, but proof gives you peace of mind. Promises are temporary highs, but proof is lasting stability. You can get swept away by promises and then crash into disappointment. But when you base your love on proof, you know exactly where you stand. You don't have to wonder if they're serious. You don't have to wonder if they're lying. The proof answers every question without you having to ask. And don't get it twisted. People who truly love you won't be offended when you ask for proof. They'll be glad to show you through their actions. The only people who get mad about you asking for proof are the ones who don't plan to deliver. Think about that. If somebody says, why do you need proof? Isn't my word enough? That's a red flag, because if your word was enough, your actions would already back it up. You wouldn't need to argue about it. Proof silences arguments because it speaks louder than words. So many broken hearts could have been avoided if folks had just stopped believing promises and started watching for proof. You wouldn't have wasted years waiting for somebody to get serious. You wouldn't have cried yourself to sleep hoping they'd finally change. You wouldn't have lowered your standards to keep somebody who was never planning to meet them. The whole time, the proof was right in front of you. You just chose to listen to the promise instead. That's why I say don't fall in love with what people say. Fall in love with what they do. Don't give your whole heart to somebody who only knows how to write checks with their mouth, their actions. Can't cash. Don't build your life around the idea of one day. Look at the proof of today. If today doesn't show love, if today doesn't show effort, if today doesn't show respect, then no promise about tomorrow is going to change that. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real clear. You cannot build a future on maybe. You can't build stability. You can't build trust. You can't build love. You can't build a family on a shaky little word like maybe. Maybe is uncertainty dressed up to sound like possibility. Maybe keeps you hanging on the edge of a cliff, hoping for a safety net that never comes. Maybe is one of the most dangerous places to put your heart, because it tricks you into waiting for something that's never promised. When somebody says maybe, what they're really telling you is, I don't know if I'm in this all the way. They're telling you, I don't know if I see you as my future, but I don't want to let you go either. They're telling you, I don't want to give you a no, but I don't want to give you a yes. That's not commitment. That's confusion, and confusion is no foundation for a relationship. See, here's the problem with maybe. Maybe keeps you holding on to potential. Maybe keeps you in limbo. Maybe makes you believe that tomorrow is going to look different when today is already showing you the truth. You sit there year after year waiting on maybe to turn into was, and while you're waiting, your life is passing by, your joy is slipping away, and your standards are shrinking. You cannot afford to let maybe rob you of your future. Imagine you're building a house. The builder says, well, maybe we'll lay the foundation right. Or the bank says, maybe we'll approve the loan. Or the contractor says, maybe the roof won't leak. Would you move into that house? Of course not. Because you can't live under a roof that might collapse. You can't trust a floor that might cave in. So why do people try to build love, marriage, and family on a maybe? A relationship is supposed to be your safe place, your shelter. You can't build shelter out of uncertainty. Maybe is comfortable for the person giving it, but painful for the person receiving it. The one saying maybe gets to keep all their options open. They get to enjoy your love, enjoy your loyalty, enjoy your effort without giving you a solid answer. But the one holding on to maybe is always restless. You're always questioning where you stand. You're always waiting for clarity. You're always sacrificing for someone who hasn't even decided if they're sacrificing for you. That's not partnership. That's punishment. And let me tell you something. If somebody truly wants you, you won't be a maybe. You won't be left guessing. You won't be left waiting. You won't have to decode mixed signals like you're reading a mystery novel. Love is not confusing. Real commitment is not confusing. When somebody is serious about you, they're not going to risk losing you to indecision. They're going to make it clear. They're going to step up. They're going to make sure you know exactly where you stand. The danger with maybe is that it makes you start adjusting yourself just to hold on. You start lowering your standards, hoping it'll push them toward yes. You start silencing your needs, thinking, if I just don't ask for too much, maybe they'll stay. You start convincing yourself that half love is better than no love, so you settle for being an option instead of a priority. But let me ask you, do you really want to spend your future begging somebody to decide about you? Do you want to waste years waiting for somebody to wake up one morning and finally say, okay, I choose you? Because the truth is, if they really wanted to, you'd already know. Maybe is the word people use when they want to keep you around without giving you security. It's the bait that keeps you hooked. They'll say, maybe we'll get married one day, so you stay. Maybe I'll stop messing around, so you stay. Maybe we'll settle down when the time is right, so you stay. But that maybe never has a date, never has a deadline, never has proof behind it. It's just enough to give you hope, but never enough to give you peace. And you know what happens when you build your future on maybe? You start planning your life around uncertainty. You put off your own dreams thinking, I'll wait and see what they do first. You delay your happiness thinking, once they finally commit, then I'll be happy. You hold back from living fully because you're waiting on a green light from somebody who's not even sure if they want to drive. And while you're waiting, your life is on pause, your heart is on hold, your soul is unsettled. That's the cost of maybe. Some of y'all have been in a maybe relationship so long that you don't even know what yes feels like anymore. You're so used to mixed signals, so used to broken promises, so used to uncertainty that you've convinced yourself it's normal. But let me tell you, love that is real is not shaky. Love that is real doesn't make you guess. Love that is real feels like peace, not chaos. Love that is real feels like clarity, not confusion. If it doesn't feel steady, it's not a yes, it's a maybe. And a maybe will never be enough. Think about your value. Think about who you are. You're too valuable to be someone's backup plan. You're too valuable to be somebody's we'll see. You're too valuable to keep waiting on a decision that should have been made the moment they realized your worth. You are not a maybe. You are a definite. You are a yes. You are a prize. And the person who truly sees that won't risk losing it with hesitation. Now let's get practical. How do you know when you're in a maybe relationship? It shows up in the way they avoid commitment conversations. Every time you ask where things are going, they dodge the question. Every time you bring up the future, they say, let's not rush. Every time you ask for clarity, they give you excuses. It shows up in the way their actions don't match their words. They'll talk about love, but you don't feel loved. They'll talk about building, but nothing gets built. They'll talk about changing, but the behavior never changes. That's maybe living in disguise. And here's the kicker. The longer you accept maybe, the longer it takes away your opportunity for all eyes. Because while you're tied up in indecision with somebody who won't choose you, the person who would choose you is passing right by. The person who would love you for real doesn't even get a chance because your energy, your time, your heart is all invested in a question mark. That's why it's so important to stop letting maybe take up space in your life. There's a kind of peace that comes with a clear wise. There's a security, a confidence, a joy that comes when you know somebody has chosen you without hesitation. And once you've tasted that, you'll never settle for maybe again. Because yes doesn't play games. Yes doesn't leave you guessing. Yes doesn't keep you waiting year after year. Yes shows up. Yes builds with you. Yes makes plans with you. Yes turns words into action. That's what love is supposed to look like. But to get to that, you've got to stop wasting your future on maybe. You've got to stop giving your best years to uncertainty. You've got to stop letting somebody else's indecision become your prison. Every day you stay tied up in maybe is a day you could have spent building with somebody who already knew you were a yes. Every day you settle for maybe is a day you're saying no to the real love you deserve.